Yo people, Elementium here. This time talk about Shana main, the normal version, because after reset, Kimono Asuna banner will be going away, and we will get Kimono Shana with her own Elementium buff, and there's a chance that she will be part of the Blade team, and Shana main is a core unit of that team, so I need to talk about her first to give more context to Kimono Shana Elementium if she's part of the Blade team. So let's start with Shana main area damage. With her exclusive talent we have Flame of Heaven. So every time Shana moves, she will get a buff that can stack up to 5 times, lasts for 2 turns, and increases her team damage, and it caps at 5%. So at all 5 times that she moves, remember that moving is skill 1, skill 2, climax and cross skill, doesn't count support skill. She will get a new stack and it caps at 25%. Some trivia: Shana is the only non-limited character that have a exclusive talent that reaches 25% cap. Some only reach 20% and most only reach 15%. Shana is the only one that goes to 25%. Now let's talk about her stats. Shana has a launch character, caps at 2000 attack, and she is full attack stat, which is quite good on this game since you want your character to be full DPS. Her speed is very fast. It was a problem before, but nowadays it's fine. And that's pretty much it. She is full attack and have a exclusive talent that increases damage, which is a good start for her. Now for her skills. Her first skill, 0 skill point area damage. It's the standard 0 skill point area damage at 160% damage, so very normal skill. Something to note is that this skill hit the front the most, so even if it says area damage, the front take most of the damage, then the mid, and here take the least amount. For her second skill we have a 4 skill point area bleed, and this is the reason why Shana was considered very bad, because she doesn't have a poor damage skill, she have a bleed skill, and as we know, bleed is very weak. So on the damage department, this is the same damage as a 3 skill point, and since bleed can't crit, this is a waste of skill point, not worth using. Now for her climax skill, the worst part of her kit, a 12 climax point bleed climax skill. Yeah, you read it right, it's a bleed, so the damage is lower than a 8 climax point. 8 climax point gets 824, this is 720, this is like 10 climax point single target damage, so it's very weak for 12. And the blade effect is strong, but it's only for 1 turn and it's a blade, so it doesn't crit. This thing here is like 20,000 damage, yeah, for each enemy. It doesn't help much her damage. This effect you can ignore is because I have her Awakens one. I will talk about this on her Awakens effect. Now let's see her skills in action. Start with her skill number 1. Now for her skill 2. As we can see, the damage isn't much, and the bleed isn't special. Like 5000 bleed, it's okay, but not worth the cost of 4 skill point. Now for her climax skill. Damage, it's near 8 climax point. The blade is quite good, 21,000, but it's not worth the cost. That it was 12 climax point for like 300,000 damage. It's very low. and this was why Shana was considered bad. Her skills are very weak. Still, Shana at least have one good cross skill to help her kit, so at least she have salvation. Let's talk about her cross now. Cut the skill group, 6 skill point, area attack down. This thing here should mean to you that you don't want to use this skill. So for damage, this is weaker than a 3 skill point. This is a 6 skill point that does less damage than a 3 skill point. The attack reduction is also very weak. You can see 4 skill point attack down that does better reduction. And that's it. If it's a very bad skill, don't use it. But if I'm not mistaken, there's an achievement in the game for you to use this cross 15 times. 50 times, yeah, 50. But besides that achievement, it's like 50 migo. Don't touch this cross skill, it's very bad. Now we have the only good skill that Shana have. The Endless Palace, Flames Haze, 4 skill point, area damage. It's a standard 4 skill point area that have the cap at 461, so it's full damage. It's a very good skill. The only problem is that Wilhelmina is low attack, but still it's the only skill that you should use with use your skill point when using Shana. Now we have one of the worst skills in the entire game. 4 skill point, Shelter. What kind of thing is this? So grants shields, so this thing just should tell you that it's very bad. The amount is also very low, and also those damage reduction on the enemy, that's almost the same value as the Mikoto cross, but still it's a do nothing skill. It doesn't help you survive well. The damage reduction is negligible, and damage reduction is very bad. Shield is also very bad. Don't touch this, is very bad. Now we have a 6 skill point spell, the only in the game, World Order Protector with Yukina. The damage is the damage of a 5 skill point, and you get the spell by 1 skill point, but in my opinion it's not worth the cost, because if you want to use the spell, just pick a 3 skill point spell. Don't waste on a cross skill to eat all your skill points just for a spell effect. Still, let's see their animations in battle. First with Mikoto cross skill, third girls group. This is, I have both at 6 star, so this is the highest that the skill can get. Still, it's very weak. Kaneko. It was Kuroneko before. As you can see, it's like the same damage of her blade skill, so keep your distance from the skill, don't touch it besides the challenge for 50 uses. Next we have Wilhelmina cross skill. It's upward damage for skill point. Way more damage than her blade skill, so this is the pair that you want to use Shana with. It's not worth to use her with any other character in the game because her base skill are terrible. Now it's Aerial's time, so as I said, one of the worst skills in the game. Does nothing to the enemy, pathetic effect like attack down, doesn't matter, and the shield is also, it's not that good. Maybe you can get like 5,000, maybe 6,000 for the shield, but it's only one turn and enemies don't do enough damage. Like Aerial is level 1, doesn't have any keep. Shana got a single target damage and she's fine, so not worth the use, keep your distance away. Now we have Yukina's cross. It's as I said before, 6 skill point spell with damage of a 5 skill point skill. The damage will not be great because my Yukina isn't built, but still for the damage it's okay, but not worth the cost. 5 and 6 skill point skills are bad by nature of how much they cost. Not only that, she have a lower damage than her cost, so it's even worse for her. But besides that, her support skill is also useless for Shana because she already have a 0 skill point skill, and using this skill doesn't trigger Shana's exclusive talent, so she doesn't get a damage boost. Now let's talk about Shana's Awakens. So I have mine at Awaken 1, and the fact is, when she uses climax skill, if she hits an enemy with bleed or bark fire, she heals herself for 14% of her attack for each enemy, so she can heal for 42% of her attack when she hits 3 enemies. This is like she can reach like 13,000, so maybe a 5,000 heal, but it is very bad. As someone that have this, you never activate this effect because bleed and backfire are terrible. For Awaken 3, her skill 2 deals more damage when she uses it against someone with bleed or backfire, and it's not enough. This is very small buff, but it still is worth using Wilhelmina cross skill. And for Awaken 5, she gets a buff for her exclusive talent, where she enters the battle with 1 stack of conviction. This is good, but being honest, you can survive without it. It's not that great, just help her reach her max stack 1 turn earlier. But still, if you have, you have. But it's not something that would say, yeah, go for it, it's cool and all. So her awakens are quite bad, so you don't need to mind it. The illustration, I also don't like it, it's very strange. Next, for her Psyche, she only have one, it's shared with Wilhelmina, so it's physical defense, critical damage, critical hit, and final damage taken. This one have, how to say it, auto-dated values. If it was today, this would be 15%, this would be 6, this would be 5, and this would be 5 and this would be 4. But still, it's not the worst thing in the world. At least there's crit damage here, and crit rate can help Shana since she have so many crit checks on her cross skill. The worst part is, since there's only one, she needs to share with Wilhelmina, and you want Wilhelmina to have the Psyche because Shana's effect doesn't boost her cross skill. So since you always spam the cross skill, you need to leave with Wilhelmina for the Psyche boost. It's a very low wolf buff, but it's a buff anyway. Now, finally, let's talk about her Elementium, something that was very good for her. First, let's talk about her module. Love you only. So when the battle starts, Shana will gain a stack of no longer state that will reduce her skill point by 2 for 1 turn. So if you go to her skills, this will be 2 skill point, and if you go for her cross skills, this will be 4, this will be 2, 2, and 4. Support skills are also reduced, so one of the problems that Shana have is that she was very fast and you couldn't use her skills on turn 1, so this helped her to use her skills on turn 1. It's quite good for her, and on second turn onwards she'll gain Forever True Love that increases bleed damage, but mine isn't leveled enough, so let me pick a image with a built one. Here I have one that is max level, so bleed increases by 64%. For her basic skills this doesn't matter much, but it's a great buff for her climax skill. Now let's take a look at the other effects that she got. Let's start with a Hexed spell first, because it's the most important. So enemies that the bleed that the enemies have that you inflicted lasts 1 turn longer, including Kimono Shana through Crimson. This is the reason why I wanted to do her video before Kimono, is because Kimono is listed by name here, and most of the time when this happens, you get a synergy somehow. So, unlimited spell, 1 turn more bleed for every bleed that you can get. So Shana's bleed on skill 2 are 3 turns, and her climax is 2 turns of bleed, which is a very powerful effect. Now for true self, this one is very bad in my opinion. So every time Shana attacks the enemy will get a removable bleed that is almost 1% damage and lasts for 1 turn, and it can stack through 10 stacks. So the reason that I didn't talk about this one first is because for it to stack, it needs this effect for duration, because when the enemy moves, since it's only 1 turn, the bleed will disappear, and when she attacks again, it will be only 1 stack. But in my opinion, it's not worth the cost. Don't go for this effect, it's very minor. Now for the last effect, we have the Great One, and when Shana enters a fight, she gets Fire Wings. Trivia: Fire Wings is the is her climax skill on Kimono version. And what is this, that the first time she will use her climax skill, it will have a cost reduction by 4. So her climax is now a 8 climax point skill. After that, what does this do for Shana? So first of all, with Unrested Spell and the Great One, her climax damage is very good. She gets one of the best climax in the entire game because it's cheap and does great damage. It's a 8 climax points on damage, but the amount of blade damage that she gets for this and the extended duration is crazy. It's like half of the climax damage that she gets as a bonus. It's very good. So for a 8 climax point, Shana now have a very good climax, which was one of the faults of her kit. And that's it for her Elementium. It's a great improvement. So now I have to talk about the Bled Team composition. So the Bled Team involves Shana, Mikoto main, and Kamineko that's not here. So let's put it here for demonstration. This is the Bled Team. So how does it work? First of all, on turn 1, Shana will have 2 climax points from Kamineko Awakens 3, and she will use her skill 2 as the first movement in battle. Then the enemy will get a 3 turn bleed, Mikoto will skill 1, and Kamineko will skill 2. And the reason it's called the Blade comp starts now. On turn 2, you have 8 climax points, so Shana can use her climax skill that will leave around 50,000 blade damage on the enemy. It lasts for 2 turns. So Mikoto have her own Elementium, and the effect that is the quartet, here for every quartet, every time she attacks enemies, she will refresh bleed duration. So what this do is that the climax damage that Shana take a bleed of her climax and skill 2 will be forever in the enemy, being refreshed every turn. So they will take 60,000 damage every turn, around that much. And after you do that, Kamineko will Shiro boost Mikoto, Shana will cross spam with Wilhelmina, while Mikoto will be climax spamming with Ouroboros until the last turn, that you nuke everything with Kamineko and detonate bleed with this impression weapon that nobody uses because it's very bad. Something to notice too is that every time that Mikoto uses her climax skill, she can detonate every blade in the enemy, so it's even more climax damage for the team. And that's pretty much it. This is the blade composition, but it's not worth building because it's expensive and doesn't get a very high score. you need 3 souls for Shana Elementium, 1 for Mikoto Elementium, Ouroboros at Awaken 5, and Kamineko at Awaken 3. Very expensive thing, and you can get better results with other things for a cheap price. And that's it, people. Shana, and after her Elementium, is a very good character. She's probably one or maybe the best launch character in the game right now. I may be biased because I like her, but still, she doesn't depend on any character to be great, and unlike Mikoto that needs Shana's bleeds for her Elementium to take effect, or Miyuki that got nothing herself, I think that Shana now is one of the best characters that you can get if you are not playing with only non-limited. Still, she doesn't scale well in the meta because the meta is Shiro climax boost, and her climax skill doesn't scale well with Shiro because Shiro only increases the climax damage. She doesn't buff the blade, so Shana climax is terrible for spamming. And that's it, people. I hope that you like it. I don't know if I will post Kimono Shana video on when she arrives. If I have time, I will do. Still, wait for Kimono Shana video. It will not take that long. Goodbye.